It's time now for the KC Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's KC Ingram.
Tired of lines at the boat launch, sun damage, or not using your boat because of the hassle? Call Meridian Marina and Yacht Club because we do all the work so you can enjoy your boating lifestyle. We store your boat inside, launch it with a wash with just 30 minutes notice, and rinse it down before putting it back. We do the work so you can enjoy your day on the water. Call us up at 772-221-8198. That's 221-8198. Or visit us online at meridianmarina.com for more information. Also, I cannot speak all of a sudden. I think it must be my guest in this studio. He's been a repeat guest for so many times. It's Trey McDonald. So get myself tongue-tied. But before we get to Troy, I want to remind everybody to sign up for a weekly notification of an email from the KC Ingram Show that will let you know who the special guest of the week is. And you can do that at my website, thekcingram.show.com. If you're not receiving that email on Tuesdays, check your spam because oftentimes they go there. And also, we are calling all nights. If you are a Pine School or St. Michael Knight alumni from any class, from any time frame of attendance of kindergarten through 12th, we are looking for you. Or if you're aware of any Knight alumni, please let us know. The evening of celebration on November 7, 2020 will feature many of our former Knights. This will be a great opportunity to showcase our alumni as they shift from the Pine School to excellent universities and colleges, and then shift on to great careers. Please email the Pine School. You can email Beth Lettengarver at thepineschool.org or alumni at thepineschool.org with contact information. Save the date, November 7, 2020. More exciting details to come. So in the studio, as I said, I have a former guest who's been here many times. And if I looked back, you may have a record as being my most repeated guest. If not, it's going to be very close, but it's Trey McDonald. How are you doing this evening, Troy?
Well, thank you, Casey, and I'm so happy to be back. In fact, I believe I was your first guest.
You were my first guest. I'm glad you reminded me of that. And we go back a long ways, over 5 years now. And at the time, you were a commissioner, and I want to say you were even mayor of Stuart. And here we are today. You're coming back as a Meet Your Candidate for, once again, commissioner in the city of Stuart. You love the city, don't you?
I love the city. You know, the city is my home. It's been my home for 25 years. The entire time I've lived in Martin County, I've lived in the city limits of Stuart. I'm married to a woman who was born and raised in the city of Stuart. So it's been a great place. I've built a business here, and I've had the pleasure of serving on the city commission for 8 years from 2011 to 2018.
Portia Scott is that amazing wife that you speak of, and she's also been a guest here on the show. But
she is.
She's wonderful. Hello, Portia.
And she's also a Pine School Knight from, I'm not going to say what year, because I might get in a little trouble.
Okay, go Knights, Portia. I'd love to hear that. So, Troy, you're coming back into the political arena again. So tell us a little bit about what you've been up to these last couple of years and what is bringing you back to run for city commission.
Well, I think that's a good question. And often when candidates are asked why they're running, it's amazing to me how often, and I guess I shouldn't be amazed, they go, well, they have a hard time answering, but it's not that hard of an answer for me. One, as you said, I love the city. I love being there and helping serve our community. But the time I took off, the year and 3/4, year and a half that I've been away from the city, it's allowed me to look at the city with a different viewpoint. It's amazing to me. It was even amazing to me how much I had got set in my belief structure while looking at things from one point of view. And after spending some time away from the city and being able to see it from a different point of view, it has reignited my desire to serve the residents of the city of Stuart, but also allowed me to look at things from different perspectives, different angles, seeing how maybe we should do some things a little bit different, realizing that some of the things I believe that residents were wanted or concerned about were one way when they might actually be a different way.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. What are some key areas that you would focus on if you were to be elected? And before we go into that, Troy, for the listeners out there that are saying, wait, there's a city commission race in Stuart, there is. Commissioner Kelly Glass-Layton is running for property appraiser, so she is resigning her seat at the city commission, which is now open. So
And
Here
there's
we are.
also 3 other seats that are up this year just by normal course of business.
Thank you. I didn't realize there's
Yeah,
3
one
already. So,
groups 1, 3, and 5, I believe.
so
And
we have quite a few races going on. So 4 out of the 5 seats are up.
potentially 4. There could be as many as 1 for sure, and many as 4 new commissioners, or 3 just 1 new commissioner, or someplace in between. So
Exciting times.
Pardon?
It is. It's exciting
it
times.
is. It is exciting. So, anyways, I'm sorry. The question was.
Well, I wanted you to go. You said you had the opportunity to view things from a different standpoint, being off the commission, and I'm wondering what are those areas you would focus on if you were to be elected to city commission this time.
Well, one of the things is something I always took very seriously, but I would really want to dive into it, is fiscal responsibility. I think it's really important that we really focus in and hone in on how we're spending our money, how each program is ran. You get to a point where you believe, well, this has been working fine, but I think it's time to actually sit back and look at the program. We need to look at the city's property management fund and look at the real estate the city owns and evaluate which properties that we should keep and which properties the city should maybe divest itself of. There's also programs, the Tram in downtown Stewart. I think that's a program that needs to be looked at and reevaluated. Because it's an important program that we have. It is one of the best things that the city has ever done, but it's evolved and changed over the years. And we need to look at it and make sure that it's accomplishing the goals of what the Tram is there for, and that it's being fiscally responsibly ran, that we're doing that.
And things have really changed with the Tram because, as I recall, they were able to operate it through a grant that has since expired.
Yes, and they, back when they first started the Tram, there was just one tram, and it was an on-demand running just basically wherever it needed to go, just kind of zigzagging back and forth. And then eventually it's on a fixed route. And from what I'm understanding is ridership is actually down, and costs have gone up with the fixed route. And I would need to, I'm going to preface that it needs to be dug into, and I need to actually dig in and really dig into the numbers and look at it. But maybe we need to go back, take a step backwards and go back to where we had been. Downtown parking is a big issue, and one of the things that has always concerned me, and anybody that knows me, and we've talked about this over the years, is I've always been a concern about downtown parking. Is it parking spaces, and parking is an absolute function of how the downtown functions as an economic driver for our community. And when I go downtown on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, and I see, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I see paid valet parking, and most of it empty, half of it or more empty, that tells me that it's not being utilized, and that program needs to be reevaluated.
So there's a lot of things you've been able to look at, and this is a very unique experience for you because you worked hard. You were, as I said, the mayor when City of Stewart had its 100th year birthday, very special year. But you were overseeing and one of the people overseeing Stewart through a lot of the water issues, the discharges, a lot of bad times. So now the last couple of years, you've been just a civilian with the rest of us, not an elected official, and being able to look at these different issues from a different lens. I think that's really a strength that you have going back into this political race.
It is a strength because, again, we get set in our ways, and taking and I took a full year off where I did not dive deeply at all into any of the issues. And then and I did that intentionally. I just wanted some time. I focused on my business. I did some travel, but then I started digging back into it. And it's like, wait a minute, let me look at how this is. And we have serious issues with the water. We've had it for years. The discharges from Lake Okeechobee, they've got to stop. They're destroying our river. They're destroying they're destroying our environment. Clean water is a right that we all have earned, and we deserve, and we're entitled to. And so we need to work for that. But we have to make sure that how we go about clean water is something that actually works. There's one of the biggest discussions recently has been whether to sue the Army Corps of Engineers. And though I understand why it's something, but I think we need to sit back, take a breath. The city commission, I think, has pulled back on that. And I think that's the right move while they evaluate it. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm not saying we should do it. What we need to do is evaluate, develop a coalition of collaborative partners such as Martin County to move forward, whether we sue or we don't sue. Because if we need to, we don't want to just have a something that's going to set our progress backwards with the Army Corps of Engineers. If we can sue and move things forward, and it actually will, absolutely, full speed ahead. But we need to have collaborative partners for both the cost and so that we're all on the same page. We don't need to be going it alone and having Martin County, the state, and whoever else is out there fighting against us. We need to be all going in the same direction.
United for certain.
United we stand, or divided we will fall. And if we're divided on this issue, we will fall. And when we fall, the river fails and we all fail. So I think that it's going to take a lot of evaluation, and something that we should be continuously moving forward in our evaluation. And we need to get input from the community as to how we should go about that.
One other thing I can speak of on your behalf, Troy, is I met you, I think it was back in 2012, 2013. It was there was some water discharges, and I think it was 2013 we were going to Washington, D.C., and that's when I first met Trey McDonald, and he was representing the city of Stewart up there. And since then, I've really gotten to know him well. He's had an open door policy. We could talk about a lot of different topics over the years, and that's one thing I liked about him. But one thing that really strikes me, Troy, is I knew you'd be back in politics, first of all. It's in your blood. But secondly, the reason why it is you really go out of your way to represent your community further than just Stewart. I've seen you in Tallahassee. I've seen you in Washington, D.C. I've seen you up and down the coast at different League of Cities. You really go out. So exactly, there's meetings all over. That's exactly right. Find meetings down in Miami. One of the only representatives from the county, as I recall, that was down there. So the one thing with you, Troy, is you really want to represent your community, and you do that with establishing contacts that are near and far.
Well, I think that's how we have to. I believe in collaboration and having a collegial environment. Sometimes trying to have a collegial environment has gone to my detriment at times, but because I will work hard to develop that, and not everybody wants that, unfortunately. We live in the social media world where people often want divisiveness, but I don't believe in divisiveness. If we don't work together, we're not going to solve major problems. You cannot solve major problems going it alone. And so I believe that, and I believe there can be more than one solution and more than one opinion. And you have to, even if you don't agree with that opinion, you need to listen to it and take it into consideration, because often it's a hybrid of ideas that actually gets things done.
It truly is. And speaking of those relationships, I'm not sure where it stands today, but there was always this tension between the city of Stewart and the county. And that is something I know that you worked very hard on saying, no, we have to get along.
Yes.
That's how you move forward and accomplish things. So I know that you can bring that hindsight back with you if you were to be elected, and make sure things are moving forward in a positive direction. I feel like they are now, and you need to ensure that it continues.
They are. I've met with some county officials, both elected and administratively, and talked to them, and I was very happy to hear that the relationships are actually very good right now. And that's the kind of thing that we worked very hard for, because there were times that the tensions were pretty intense at times. There was, at one point while I was on the city commission, the city and county were actually suing each other. And those days are currently behind, and hopefully they'll stay behind us, and we'll continue to work towards collaborative efforts. But I think that this is one of those issues, after stepping back a little bit, I've been watching some issues involving some new developments in and around the Stewart area. And there's one involving a development that is in the city limits, but the impacts are to non-city residents.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about that and how that related to not only that area, but such as a location where I live, Palm City Road. Palm City Road has an intense amount of traffic on it. The last I recall, the last traffic study that was done on it, which is 4 or 5 years ago, I think there was like 12,000 operations a day on Palm City Road. The bulk of those cars do not live off of Palm City Road. They're people who live in Palm City and they're transversing
It's
the
the
neighborhood.
shortcut. That's right.
It's a shortcut heading home. And so every time there's a development in Palm City, it affects residents in Stewart every time. Often when there's a development or a project in the city, it can affect county residents. So it's important that we maintain this collaborative relationship so that we can deal with and give a voice to the people that necessarily don't have a voice in the discussion.
Something that was interesting on the Palm City Road, I have to bring this up now, is that you were on the commission a few years ago. There were speed bumps. They were removed, and now they've been put back in. So that was kind of one of those things.
Well,
Everybody's like, wait a minute, what's going on?
It's to me, this is one of the issues that I think that the current commission, a few of the members don't have the history of speed bumps. In my opinion, do not solve the problem, but it goes a little bit further than that. They came in and they put in speed bumps. They decided that they needed to be higher, so they put them higher and they made them bigger. At that point, I started complaining because my wife's car going at a crawl was scraping over the top of them, and several other people's were. And when I finally took pictures of one of the speed bumps with the big gouges out of them, then they ground them completely down, and then they put them back in, and then they had made them. They're also tabletop sidewalk type speed bumps. So then they had to go and redo all the sidewalks because they were too high and too steep of a ramp to go up for the ADA. So it's that lack of history, but also more importantly, we need to be looking at why we're doing things. I think that, and I advocated for this near the end of my tenure at the city, that with Palm City Road, that we need to be looking for other traffic control structures that will calm traffic without the speed bumps. And there are options out there. And I don't believe they cost any more, or if they do, it's slightly more than what speed bumps do. And speed bumps don't work because what happens is cars speed up to the speed bump, they slam on the brakes, they go over the bump, they speed to the next one. I see it on my road every day, and I live off of Palm City Road, and every time they put more and I have speed bumps on my road, so I see it on mine, but also every time as soon as they put the speed bumps back on Palm City Road, we started seeing more traffic in the other roads cutting across from Palm City Road to Cantor Highway.
And this is an issue. I have to say, it seems like the traffic has increased tenfold this year. Probably isn't that high, but it's increased a lot. And I will say residents over off of Murphy Road in Palm City are having the exact same issue from people coming from St. Lucie County and to work in Martin County. And they're trying speed bumps. And I know the county's trying to address that now, the county commission. It's a tough issue now to deal with.
It's a tough issue. And this goes back to several years ago while on the city commission and chairman of the MPO, the city, which was one of the city's boards I was appointed to by the city. We had an issue involving funding, federal funding between St. Lucie and Martin County. And we fought to keep higher funding, even though our population hasn't increased as much, because we have so many people coming from St. Lucie County. Green River Parkway is a good example. And anybody who thinks that we don't need Green River Parkway to bring traffic in from Port St. Lucie and St. Lucie County, just look what happens when they close the boat show for the Dixie Highway for a few days for the boat show.
Traffic is
miserable. Traffic on US 1 and over the Roosevelt Bridge comes to a screeching halt because there's so much traffic on US 1. It's adding a tremendous amount of cars that it keeps off of US 1.
So certainly, Trey, you talked about one of your focuses to review the budgets again. Now that you've been on the outside,
Mhm.
on the other side of the fence, I should say, and come back in as a commissioner. What other focus do you see would be an issue that you would look at?
Well, I think I want to look at, in addition to the budget, the finance, I want to look at the purchase of the Wells Fargo building that they're looking at buying for City Hall. I would like to look at that and see how that really dig into that purchase. I also would really like to get into two environmental issues. One is the is we've talked about the river and the discharges, but I think the thing that I really want to look at is what more the city of Stewart can do to improve the water quality that from the damage so the city of Stewart is not damaging the water ourselves. We want to be better neighbors to the river. So I want to look at the stormwater treatment plans that have been out there and what's on the books, what can we get on the books, how we're going to fund those. I'm happy to say this septic to sewer program that the city that we voted for in 2011 to put septic and sewer through 10 basins throughout the city of Stewart and complete the entire city service area with sewer conversion. I heard at the last city commission meeting that they're finishing it up. It's either 2 or 3 years early. So that's fabulous. And that's thousands of septic tanks.
It's a huge success.
It is a huge success, and it was done as a voluntary program for the residents, not as a mandatory special assessment. And they've had a higher sign-up rate than if they than they ever thought. And so it's being paid off early. Return on investment is there, and it's successful. So
Yes.
I want to keep looking at these kinds of projects in the environmental. Also, I want to look back at the program that I created where we gave rebate, and I think the city has been talking about defunding it, and I want to make sure we don't. It's a rebate program for energy efficient updates.
Okay.
And as we talk about climate change, we talk about all the things. One of the things that we can do is reduce our use of carbon emissions. And how can we do that? We can really look at how we're giving incentives and programs for residents, giving them a way to move forward, and then continuing with Tesla chargers and other like
Perfect,
the way we put
Troy.
in, and also the solar panels at Kiwanis Park.
Troy, we are out of time. Troy McDonald is running for City of Stewart Commission. Make sure you follow him. He's going to be opening up his Facebook page very soon, and you can always contact Troy. So Troy McDonald, City of Stewart Commission. Also remind everybody this Saturday, 3D archery shoot to benefit Martin County 4-H. That's going to be at Timer Powers Park in Indiantown. And if you want more information, just call 772-419-6965, 419-6965. Troy, real quick, if anybody has a question for you, how do they reach you?
You can reach me at my personal Facebook page, Troy A. McDonald. Just send me a message via Messenger.
There you go. You can reach Troy that way. And next week, you asked, and he's going to be here. We're going to have I just blanked out. KW Miller on, and he's going to be here next week. So you asked, he'll be here. He's considering a run in CD18. We'll see you next week.